On the Jacob Buer show, I am so happy to be joined by the Golden Bachelor himself. How are you doing today?
Good, Jacob. How are you?
I'm doing good. At Purdue University, and it's the start of October officially. So, happy October.
Yeah, we're kind of getting into the second half of football season almost, aren't we?
Yes, and Purdue needs a massive turnaround
I'm hoping it'll happen.
for sure. So, take us through. What was it like? Obviously, your family suggested that you get on the show. What was it like for you when you found out that you were going to be the first Golden Bachelor? Here you go, you're in your 70s. What was that experience like for you when you found out?
Uh, it was a tremendous shock, of course, but it was also a great relief. Bear in mind that I had been in conversation with ABC from about the second week of February last year, clear until Memorial Day. And during that time, I was led to believe that I was going to be the guy, but I did not receive commitment from ABC that I was indeed the guy. So I was in limbo all this time. I didn't know whether I should plan to be gone from home, whether I should abandon thoughts and fantasy about being on the show. And then on Memorial Day, my oldest daughter had her laptop and she told me she was in need, she needed to do a work call. And the reality was she was setting up a phone call with Jesse Palmer. So that Memorial Day, I came around to her side of the laptop and there's Jesse Palmer staring at me. And he said, Gerry, how you doing? How would you like to be the Golden Bachelor? And I remember specifically saying, Jesse, is this the official offer or are you just taking my temperature again? And he goes, no, this is the official offer. So after months of not knowing for sure, I was very relieved. And then, of course, I became excited with the next moment. My kids are around me, the guests who are at my house are around me, and we're celebrating the news. And from that moment forward, the emotions were all very positive and very high energy, enthusiastic about participation in the show.
For sure. And a lot of things with you, of course, haven't changed because of the show Life After. You're still a golfer. You still enjoy pickleball. You still enjoy all the hobbies being on a lake. You still enjoy college football and all those fun things. What's kind of your biggest takeaway from it? Because obviously everyone knows what happened with the show, but what's your biggest takeaway from it in your own eyes?
Wow, there's a lot of things that I could point to. I think first off, my biggest takeaway has been that as a person, I've been maybe a little bit naive about things over the years, and maybe allowed trust perhaps more than I should have. And I really don't want to change that, but it has made me very cautious about dating again. Being very careful about trying to find a partner who shares a lot of life experiences and shares the moral characteristics that I feel like I have and so forth. So that might be the biggest thing.
And speaking of it, do you have any relationship advice for college students? Because obviously a lot of younger people listen to my show.
Uh, Geez, I'm not sure I'm the right guy to talk about advice to someone of such a different demographic. But I guess if it was my granddaughters, who are age 17 and age 22, I would tell them to look uh, beyond just the physical appearance of a person. Find the person that you're the most comfortable with. At the times when you feel like you're not your best, whether it's psychologically or physically or emotionally, it doesn't matter. But when you're not at your best and someone can accept you, I think that's the person that you need to look into much more seriously.
No doubt about it. I think that's a very good point. So I appreciate you sharing that. Obviously you live in Indiana. I live in Indiana. That's why it was cool a year ago because I'm looking around when I see things, ABC shows, and it's like, okay, it's somebody from Los Angeles already. That's cool, but like there's no personal connection. Being on a lake in Indiana and being from Indiana, it was like, whoa, this is kind of awesome. Just like how Richard won America's Got Talent from Terre Haute. Very cool thing to see people from Indiana on that national stage. So, what did that part mean to you?
Well, it was huge because I think both coasts have a different culture. Whether it's the East Coast kind of more pressing in your face kind of personality, or the West Coast laid back personality, each area of the country has these different characteristics. Where in my case on the national stage, I was able to bring the Midwest culture to the forefront and let people see that we're a friendly bunch, hardworking bunch, and that by and large we're just genuine and authentic to what we represent to people.
I think that's a very good point there. Because the Midwest is so different. Everyone's awesome, but the Midwest is special, as you know. Um, and it's more special than just corn. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is kind of funny when people come to this area for the first time and they're surprised by the beauty of the topography and how lush things are. Even now, we're into October and the trees are still green and the grass is still green. And to the people who maybe live in the desert or more barren areas, or the East Coast where there's a lot of concrete and buildings, this is a very beautiful area. Look past the corn and look at all the other things we have to offer.
Amen. Typically, I don't say amen to everyone who says something on your show because you're not supposed to agree or disagree with them. But on this one, I agree with you. So I will say amen to that. And then can I just two other quick questions before I ask for your advice, which I always like to close with because every guest brings some sort of different advice. What impact do you want to be known to have with your time um, that you were able to have on the show and just going forward, really?
That's a great question because it is something that I live for, that I'm writing about, and that I talk about as much as possible, and that is hope, humor, and heart. That each of us, regardless of age, but especially as we get older in my demographic, to have hope about positive outcomes and positive things that can happen in life, in particular when it comes to romance. To be open and vulnerable to opportunities to pursue a relationship. And with heart, be enthusiastic about it. Put your whole self into the search for someone. You can't nibble around the edges. You have to really put yourself completely into it. And finally, the humor part. Life has so much humor to offer. If you just sit back and watch, you can be entertained. And when you're pursuing a relationship with someone, if there's not humor there, if there's not a connection where you find the same things funny, or you're able to be a little bit self-effacing with each other, look twice at that relationship, because humor and laughter get us through so much.
I think that's a good point. And just
Thank
real quick, laughter, how does laughter help?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to see. That's a social signal to a potential partner that you found, humor in a certain area, that you find certain things funny, and sometimes it's as simple as being able to make fun of someone and their inability to follow a map, or their inability to get a certain little menial task done. If they can find humor in themselves, and this happened to me on the show. I got lost on the show in my ride with Leslie on the ATVs. I got lost, and she sort of made fun of me. And it was hilarious because her subtle little line about, "Jesus, it's a good thing I didn't have to follow you everywhere during this episode." That subtle little line created an openness there that made me realize that her sense of humor was what it was, and that it was very enjoyable to be around.
That's a very good point. Wow. And then obviously you touched on, kind of some dating advice you'd have for your grandchildren, and young people. So what is kind of your golden rule that you would say to yourself? Because you went to Iowa, if I'm correct, to
Yes.
study science, which Purdue is known for STEM, as you know, living in Indiana. I guess what would your advice be then for just the average college student who's obviously maybe they don't want to be on a dating show or anything, but they just what would your kind of golden rule be, not from even a dating standpoint, just from an enjoyment standpoint in life?
That's a good question. I recently came back from the Alabama Georgia football game, and I was obviously overwhelmed by the game. It was a great game, and but I was even more overwhelmed by the energy of the students that were tailgating and that were in the football game, and I guess this brings to mind how enjoyable it is at a youthful age, whether you're 16 to 25, your vitality is at its peak and your energy is at its peak, and to, I guess, the advice would be, don't hurry life. Take every moment as it comes. Enjoy every one of those moments. It's important to plan, but it's even more important to enjoy the very moment that you're in, because it's one less moment that you get to replay. It's instantly in the past every time one of those moments go by. So enjoy everything you can.
No doubt about it. Well, I appreciate you so much joining the Jacob Viewer Show today. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Why, I nothing comes to mind. I appreciate your patience with me. It's really great that after all this time we were able to get together and have a conversation. I hope you do very well in your endeavors in journalism, if that's ultimately the direction that you decide to go. And in the near future, I will have a book out, and I'd love to talk to you again at that time. After you read it, you can critique my style and the concepts that I put in the book, and we can talk again.
Well, I appreciate it, and we'll definitely have to do that. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
You're so welcome, Jacob. This is an honor. I appreciate that you reached out to me, and that we were able to talk.
Thank you.